Are smoothies, juicing, or fruit killers? Bad for your health? What? You may be asking. They're chock full of vitamins and minerals. Has this guy gone nuts? I'll present this in ways you've never been taught before. What really happens physiologically, based on our body's genetics, we're kind of hardwired in certain ways. There's no way of tricking our bodies. So, are you ready to have your world turned upside down again with some practical advice? Then this is the episode for you. Okay? I need you to hit the alerts, the notification button, let you know when the next episode is going to be released, that little gray bell you see. Of course, I want you to subscribe. And if you like what you've heard today, very important you hit the like button. Share this with others you know who may be interested in this confusing yet very understandable subject. And so we'll begin our subject with, again, as a newly diagnosed type 2 diabetic, I do see some major confusion when it comes to questions involving sugars, fruit, and carbohydrates. Now, I need you to still go back into my intro video, see my educational background, my physique, and what I have maintained pre and post, let's call it diagnosis, right? Now, on top of that, I've kind of spent countless hours reviewing other videos on this subject, and I can see why there's such utter confusion. Videos where they promote fruit as good for you, they're natural, okay? And there's videos that show fruit being incredibly bad for your health. Videos going both directions. Don't worry, I got you. I will set you straight, I promise, in the end, okay? So stay tuned. Now, some of these videos, they use a lot of scare tactics, and unbeknownst to you, others are very misleading because they're really bought for and paid. It's kind of economics 101. They need to get rid of the competition. So in a lot of these videos, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that you're not aware of, okay? And I'll answer all these basic questions and even more in today's discovery. So what are our key questions? First, are sugars and or fruit really bad for us? Does the body need them? 2, what are carbohydrates? Or simple sugars? What are they? We got glucose, fructose, and one you may not have even heard of before, called galactose. 3, does the body respond differently to the distinctive kinds in different foods? Now, what do I mean by that? This is really important. Is there a difference to the body if you ate, say, a bowl of cereal, a piece of bread, baked potato, energy drink, fruit drink, or even that quote-unquote healthy smoothie? What you're going to find is actually there's 2 answers. To the body, when it comes to absorption, no. But to the mind, yes. Okay, I'll explain that in just a bit. So let's begin with what sugars or carbohydrates are first, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my son's building blocks to help simplify and unwrap and understand these world's greatest mysteries, all right? First of all, simple sugars are called monosaccharides. Mono meaning one, saccharide meaning sugar. And they include glucose, right? Now, here I got them here for you. You can see little building blocks there for you. All right, so we got the blue one, the red one, and the green one, okay? We got glucose, also known as dextrose in parts of the world. Then we've got fructose and galactose. Those are our 3 monosaccharides, okay? They're also known as simple sugars, basically because they've been broken down into their individual parts, like I said. So think of it like a single block of Lego, all right? Now, foods like rice, potato, or basically starches are just basically long strands of glucose bonded together. So I'm going to give you an example of fructose right here. See the blue ones? So what you have here are just long strands, imagine them being longer, all bonded together as glucose. All right? Now, what is glucose? First of all, it is essential fuel source for most tissues throughout the body. That includes the brain, the muscles, red blood cells. They, in particular, prefer glucose. Okay? Now, the end product of glucose metabolism is simply this. It's non-toxic carbon dioxide and water. It's the byproducts. Okay? Let's go on to fruits and fructose. Fruits are not pure fructose. What they are, it's a combination of fructose, glucose, and sucrose. All right? The ratio always depends on the fruit, and they're all different. So again, to review, fruits are combinations of those two monosaccharides, fructose and glucose. All right? So let's get you a block of fruit here. So what they are, here's a combination of glucose and fructose together. All right? All right. Now we've got that. Now, side note, I mentioned the word sucrose. What is that? That's actually a disaccharide, commonly known as table sugar. We all have that at home. Now that is a disaccharide, two sugars composed of glucose and fructose together. But the thing about sucrose is that it's always in a 50-50 ratio of glucose to sucrose. So there's always going to be equal parts of fructose to glucose. All right? Now, fruits will generally have a higher fructose to glucose ratio, where always remember fructose, table sugar, is going to be 50-50. Now, what about the high fructose corn syrup? What is it? What's it made of? Well, first of all, it is an artificial man-made sugar from corn. Super cheap, easy to make. And what is it composed of? It's about 55% fructose. And if you take out the other fluff, it's about 43% glucose. Similar to table sugar. So in all honesty, here's something people should know about, because videos throw out one being evil and the other one not being evil. High fructose corn syrup and sugar, table sugar, are essentially the same thing. Okay? So now we've understood the different kinds of sugars that we have, the three. We need to understand how fructose is metabolized. Now, fructose metabolism is initiated by an enzyme in the liver called fructokinase. Why the liver? Because unlike glucose, which I told you is the preferred source of energy, fructose is not directly used as a fuel source. Hence, the liver has to be metabolically involved. Now, here's the part where things get interesting. When it comes in excess and it's constantly coming in at higher ratios of fructose to glucose, then remember, the liver has to convert it into fat. And it's stored, again, depending on energy requirements. It ties into my energy balance equation number 2. So go back to the episode and watch that carefully. So what does that mean? That means if it's coming in excess and it's not being used because of inactivity, what's the body to do with it? Where does the body store it? You heard of fatty liver? Similar to alcoholic fatty liver? It's the same thing. Okay? So let's get this out of the way. First of all, fresh fruits are healthy. They're nutritious. Great sources of vitamin and minerals, phytochemicals, and the most important component, fiber. But as I explain to you soon, only in the natural form, the way nature's presented it to us. Okay? Once it's been modified by man in any way and then consumed in excess, that's when it becomes dangerous. Because not only has the body has not been designed to deal with so much coming at one time that it doesn't quite know what to do with it. Again, based on activity or inactivity. We understand that premise? Okay. So what fruit do we use here in the Sampat household? We love our bananas. A few more items too. Now, bananas have about 5 grams of fructose. So I'll give you a few facts about bananas that'll put things into perspective for you. Okay. I would have to eat 5 bananas to get the same amount of dose of fructose as in a 20-ounce bottle of soda. Okay. Now, did you also know that the sugar content of a yellow banana can be riper than that of a green unripe banana? So guess what happens? With time, the ratios of sugars in fruit changes as it ripens. All right. The other fruits that we do eat are blueberries, blackberries, and on occasion strawberries too. All right. Now let's talk about milk. There's sugars in milk too. All right, milk produces a sugar called lactose. That's also a disaccharide, meaning two sugars composed of glucose and a new word you may have never heard before called galactose. All right, let me get you there it is right there. So galactose is this guy right here, and our glucose is the green ones. Okay? All right. Now we know what all the sugars are. Let's get to the important part of the discussion. How are these sugars broken down and absorbed? How does it affect the body? That, my friends, is the trillion-dollar question we're going to answer today. And this is where most have it wrong. All right. Now, let's rewind here. How do we know the importance of glucose to our bodies? It wants glucose to fuel us. But this is pretty important. Everything rolls back to this. At the right amounts and at the right times, right? So let's talk about a bit of how we're hardwired. Have you ever noticed, just by looking at food, or sometimes smelling food, you begin to salivate? Why does it do that? You're probably thinking it's to moisten the mouth. No. The body's way ahead of you. Because what happens is that sugar digestion actually begins in the mouth. There's an enzyme in the saliva called salivary amylase that within milliseconds starts to basically break apart these glucose molecules. So as soon as it comes in the mouth, boop, they start coming apart. Okay? Now, the amount of time in the mouth is relatively small, so salivary amylase doesn't get to work a great deal. So food is moved through the mouth, to the esophagus, and then to the stomach. Now, once in the stomach, salivary amylase becomes inactive, mainly because there's some strong acids being produced by the stomach. So carbohydrate digestion actually slows down or becomes inactive at that point. But the stomach's role is very important here. What is the stomach? Basically, it's just a muscular, elastic, pear-shaped bag about the size of your fist, and it expands and contracts based on how much volume food you have. What is it? It's the main storage tank for the body. If it wasn't for the stomach, we'd have to be eating all day long instead of 2-3 meals a day. Okay? So simply put, what does it do? It puts all the food you eat into a holding pattern. And the job of the stomach is to mechanically mix and blend all the foods that you've eaten. Okay? That's all it's going to be doing. And it produces acid and other enzymes to start breaking apart the proteins that you've eaten. So guess what? The proteins that you've also eaten start to be pulled apart by the stomach. All right? So it takes about 2 to 4 hours for the stomach to empty all its contents, depending on the food we eat. This is really critically important. The carbs are moved very quickly through the stomach. If it's liquid, it's even faster. Followed by protein foods, and the slowest to move would be heavier fat foods. So the next question is, what gets absorbed in the stomach? Virtually nothing, except for alcohol, some liquids, and medications. The small intestine, which is next, is virtually the site of where all the magic occurs. All your nutrient absorption, including your proteins, your carbs, your fats, your waters, your vitamins, your minerals, all occurs in the small intestine. And here's what you should know. The vast majority of sugar digestion occurs there in the small intestine. And it produces specific enzymes and processes to start digesting proteins, lipids, carbs. Now, in regards to carbs, there's specific enzymes that are there to start cleaving all the bonds. So everything's pulled apart into its single form again. So now we're down to just these guys. They're monosaccharide form. All right? And this is the point I want to make. All the carbs that you've eaten are now broken down into that simplest form, the individual sugar complex. And that is how it's absorbed into the bloodstream as a monosaccharide. So the question we got to ask ourselves, does the body know where the carbs came from? Whether it's glucose or fructose. I'll ask the same question again. Did it come from a bowl of cereal, a piece of bread, baked potato, an energy drink, fruit drink? a quote, healthy smoothie, or even a soda full of high fructose corn syrup? Folks, it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter because I'll say this, and I'm trying to be as specific as I can here. It only cares about how much has hit the system at any given time. Is it more than is needed? And are the body stores full? Second, which sugar was absorbed and where's it going to go if it's in excess? That is the body's, let's call it problem and priority, because it's got to be resolved. Okay? So you've now understood that glucose is different from fructose. Now, how the body handles glucose is also different from how the body handles fructose, because they go down different pathways. If fructose is now and constantly being consumed in excess, whether it's from fruit, drinks, sodas, table sugar, the liver has to deal with this. What does it do? I mentioned to you earlier. It converts the fructose into fat, and unfortunately, it's stored in the worst places. Inside the liver, as I mentioned, and in the other episodes I've discussed it, inside the muscles, in between your organs, and in the truncal area. That's not a good thing. What many have not discussed is what I'm about to say next. Okay, the most concerning thing about excessive fructose intake is this natural feedback loop that occurs via hormones. Hormones are just nothing but the messengers that one cell releases so that it communicates to another. It goes into the bloodstream, hits another cell, and it's a message between cells. It's the body's way of internally talking and communicating with each other. So as you eat, the stomach gets bigger and bigger. It releases a hormone, goes to the blood, into the brain, and it tells the brain, stop eating. You're full. I'm satisfied. Here's the problem with high fructose. It cuts that feedback loop. So those who consume too much are not only getting extra calories, but the body does not want it. But most importantly, you're going to be hungry again. So, in other words, the more you eat / drink concentrated carbs, the hungrier you're going to be. Second, those who are not diabetic, you get a massive insulin spike that's going to clear all those sugars out, and it's got to go somewhere too. And then that spike leads to a drop, and guess what? You're hungry again. Can you see why it's called the cycle of death? Now, third, another concern. This is big too. High fructose, corn syrup, and sugars are in everything you eat. All processed foods contain extra sugars for that exact reason. They're designed and put in there by the manufacturers so that you get to eat more. Now, it serves a different purpose too. It keeps that packaged food moist, and the shelf life of that product stays, it gets extended. Okay? So, from the ketchup you eat to the healthy, and I'll put that in quotes, store-bought yogurt that you had that you thought was healthy, that's probably, if you don't check carefully, it's got more sugar in it than a can of soda. So, let's get down to some practical advice. Okay? That is what the Resilient Diabetic is here for. First, you have to read your labels. Okay? And I will have an episode dedicated just to labels. The only thing I'll say here quickly is that it's not a list in random order. This is important. The ingredient lists are listed in the order of predominance, meaning the ingredients used in the greatest amounts are first on the list, followed in descending order in terms of smaller amounts. What does that tell you if sugar is listed first or second on any list? Should sugars be first on a ketchup bottle over tomatoes? Take a look. Now, this is where things get fun. I'm going to tell you a little secret, just between you and I. There are about 61 different names of sugars that can be listed on food labels. And their job is to confuse the living daylights out of you. Barley, malt, dextrose, maltose, rice syrup. I got one for you. Florida crystals, sorghum. Now, my favorite word is natural or organic. It's thrown in there as an enticement. So you'll see the word all natural, sugar cane. Mind thinks, oh, it's got to be healthy. It's organic. It's natural. My kid's got to have this. Another great example. Agave nectar. Oh boy. Agave nectar, if I remember right, is 70%, 70-90% fructose and 10 to 30% glucose. No. It's worse for you than regular table sugar, which we discussed as sucrose, which is 50-50. So, my second piece of practical advice. Eat your foods as intended. Do not drink your foods. Drinking a liquid meal creates a massive dump of sugars in the system at one given time. The beauty of whole fruit and vegetables is the natural package. Man cannot improve on nature. That package has to be broken down by the body mechanically and chemically, and it takes a lot of work and energy. Now, think of it like a parachute slowing down a skydiver. It kind of slows that process down. That blender used to liquefy those fruits and vegetables is like cutting that parachute. The next time you turn your blender on, I want you to listen to it. It's loud. It takes a lot of energy to start ripping that food apart. Let your body do that. The body's much more efficient, and it will reward you in the end. There are very few who would need liquid, let's call it liquid sugar-filled drinks. The list is real small. One would be professional athletes, like a basketball player who's just played. They've got to play again the next day and the following day. And their goal is just to replenish glycogen stores. Glycogen is another word for glucose inside the muscle. Okay? Fitness, bodybuilders too, we use sugars while we train. And that's to help push through some barriers, some training barriers. But we've got to be careful too with that because resistance occurs. And it occurs with me too. So we have to carefully watch our sugar intake when we're trying to grow. Now, speaking of me, on a side note, and I'll cover this in detail in later episodes because I also mentioned in episode 1, I'm going to have you looking your best. I could use vegetables and very lean sources of protein post-training. And let me tell you, I train intensely hard. Okay? I don't need simple sugars or starchy carbs. I can remain lean and muscular on just that. It's something I've taught many others looking to compete in tip-top condition, and I will teach you the same process too over time. You've just got to subscribe. All right? Now, the third scenario of someone eating sugar drinks, it's far beyond the course of this, is someone that's malnourished or completely devoid of nutrients, and it's rare. And refeeding of someone like that is highly complicated, so we won't even discuss that. So, here is something specific for my diabetic family, and I want you to really think about this. All right? Sugar drinks do have harsher complications on our bodies. Every aspect of our life has to be thought, rethought, reanalyzed. And I'll give you a great example. Say you've just gone hypo, and it happens to us all the time. 3 days ago, I had an episode. Blood sugars have dropped. What do you use to raise your blood sugars up? Some people use a can of juice. Have you looked on the label of that can of juice? It's the first ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. It's what you've been taught. Drink your juice. Think about that for a second. After what you've just learned, is the body low in fructose or glucose? What are you doing by consuming all that fructose? Yes, it will raise sugar levels up, thanks to the liver, as you now know. But is that the best solution? So you've solved one problem, but you've possibly created another. We'll cover that in future episodes. So I will leave you this great picture to drive my point home. Many of you have seen this picture before. I love it because it's good for reinforcement. Obviously, it's of a top-selling juice or smoothie that you're all aware of. What do you notice on the front label of that bottle? It's subtle but very powerful. You may have not detected it, but your mind has. The words, no sugar added. No sugar added? Huh. It's a bottle loaded with sugars, blended in liquid form. Now you understand? Is it good or bad? It's for you to decide. Aren't you happy you found the resilient diabetic? Again, If you like this no sweat, easy as pie, manageable understanding of how the body metabolizes sugars, I need you to hit the alerts, the notification button. I'll let you know when my next episode will be coming out. I need you to subscribe. Remember, I'm a small channel, just beginning. And if you like what you heard today, of course the like button. We've got to share this, especially with others who may be struggling. And lastly, most importantly, take some time to share some comments with me, please. I want to know more about you. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section below. Love to hear from you. And don't be shy, because any question you have, others will benefit from it too, and I'll respond. So, have a great day, a productive week, and we'll see you soon.